By going to the school system, I benefited a great deal through reading the Bible, studying history, geography, nature study, which later on turned out to be science, biology, politics, etc. By 1956, still at Kyamate Primary School in Primary 4, I had started following global events. Through a Nyankole language newspaper, Wamanya, I followed the Suez Crisis and the resignation of Anthony Eden as the Prime Minister of UK. We had a newspaper called Wamanya, and by reading it, I was able to follow this story of the Suez Crisis of 1956. There was a globe in one of the classrooms. I was surprised to see much of the globe colored red, which showed the expanse of the then Soviet Union. Who were the USSR? We were told that Russia, as the Banyankore were calling it, they were not calling it Russia, but Russia, or Kurasha, was a very powerful country. Still at Kyamate, through the wonderful Wamanya, I partially followed the story of the Uganda football team that went to England to play football barefooted, a phenomenon that surprised the British. By the time I arrived in Mbarara High School in 1959 for Junior Secondary 1, I had mastered all the indigenous technology of cattle keeping and crops husbandry. You people, you underestimate, because I can see why many people make mistakes. They don't have a base, they're just there, Burikija Kibatwala, but the traditional grounding in our indigenous economy made me very confident that there is nothing you cannot do. However, when I visited the Mbarara stock farm, I discovered that we needed to upgrade our production practices, introduce rotational grazing, fencing our land, what Honorable John Kawanga was talking about, killing ticks, growing crops in lines. Banyankole were not growing crops in line, they were just planted zigzag. Making water retention trenches in the gardens, Empazo, etc. When I went to Ntungamo for the April holidays, I told my father about this gap. The 8 years I spent in Mbarara added a lot to my knowledge and attitudes. I knew a lot about the whole world, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire and its collapse, the Egyptian civilization, the Dark Ages in Europe, the Renaissance, the steam engine, the Industrial Revolution, the slave trade, colonialism, etc. Therefore, by 1966, when I was 22 years old and had just finished the A level, I had 6 positions in my head. First, I was an expert indigenous wealth creator who had now been exposed to more science, the invisible world of the microbes that were both for evil, like the germs, or for good, like the fermentation, bacteria, and digestion. The barbed wire, sengenge, to control the movement of cattle instead of Museveni being the barbed wire to control the cattle that I had been for most of my life. Because I was the sengenge for our cows. Stop them from going into people's gardens. I'm the one who had to stop them. The only time I've been in court was when I was diverted for football with some other children. and the cows entered somebody's garden, and they started eating the crops, the millet. By the time I came, they had eaten the millet, so I had committed the offense of oponesa, when your cows damage crops. So I was taken to court, Murka court, under Umtoma, under a ficus tree. And my father coached me, he said, when you go there, you say, when you go there, you say, I plead guilty. If you do that, it will be easier for you. That's what I did. This was in 1956, when I went to that court. So, by visiting stock farm, I could see that fencing would make with barbed wire, would make our life much easier. Better agro practices, the need for joining the money economy, etc. This modernized wealth creator and his compatriots appreciated all the other wealth creators and service providers. We had no time for sectarianism and identity chauvinism, even when we valued our group cultures. Our cattle were being bought by Walisi Mpanga, a trader from Kampala for the Kampala market, Bukenya from Mbarara for the Mbarara market, and by Mr. Shea from Ishaka, who was buying cattle for the Chirembe market. And the people who were buying our cattle and giving us money to solve our problems, including paying school fees, were not Banyankole. In other words, the whole Ugandans were contributing to our prosperity. The four shops of our Indians in Tungamo, Budara, Hari, Mamdali, and another one whose name I do not remember, plus the two Arabs, the Arab shops of Bombakare and his colleagues, were bringing to us cattle salt, soap, textiles, paraffin, etc., and buying on a small scale our milk, ghee, beans, and ground nuts. When my sister, Dr. Kajibiri, I think I saw her here, got polio in 1955, the Banyankole promptly called it a Banyarwanda disease, known as Embasa in Kinyarwanda. Only the Banyarwanda could treat it. Therefore, my mother and Kajibiri had spent some months at Ruabara with the Mnyarwanda known as Kamgunda, where she was being administered with herbs that indeed saw her 85% recovery, both arms, one leg, and half of the other leg completely recovered.